And here she is, Aunt Jane.
Miss Marple doesn't chase suspects. She doesn't carry a revolver. She sits, she listens, and she remembers how people behave when they think nobody is watching.
How much do you know?
I should like to know more.
Not every screen version understands that, particularly today. So here are the 5 films that, for me, come closest to the woman Agatha Christie wrote. Or, at least, they did it in style. Would you agree that even the best plot twists on paper might be easily ruined when turned into screen adaptations?
An expert in romance as well, are you? I didn't think you were the type.
Don't judge a book by its cover, Mr. Gaskell. I assure you I never do.
Starting from Murder at the Vicarage, published in 1930, Christie came up with 12 novels and 20 stories, featuring Miss Jane Marple as a sleuth. When it comes to the books themselves, many readers consider the Marple stories among Christie's finest. Just look at The Body in the Library or The Murder at the Vicarage. Both help define the tone of village life in crime fiction, where the local doctor, the vicar, and a handful of sharp-eyed spinsters are often just as fascinating as the murder itself.
Gossip. I prefer to call it a healthy interest in human nature.
In The Murder is Announced, Christie came up with one of her most unexpected hooks, a public notice of a future murder, and quietly slipped in one of her most unsettling ideas, that it's not the strong or the obviously dangerous who cause the most harm, but the weak. Or take Nemesis, that begins with a flawed setup that only a truly confident writer would dare attempt. Miss Marple receives a letter from a recently deceased acquaintance, asking her to solve a mystery he doesn't describe, about people he doesn't name, involving a crime that may or may not have happened. Even the lesser-known Marple novels have their charm, like They Do It with Mirrors, where idealism turns dangerous, or the quietly nostalgic At Bertram's Hotel. And when the book turns into a movie, it gets enriched with atmosphere, pacing, casting. They all have to fall into place.
Yes? I'm Jane, from Mrs. Binster's employment agency, the new maid.
Well, you look old enough to know better. Come in.
Some adaptations stray too far from the source, others get the tone right but lose the plot's sharpness. A few manage both, and those are the ones worth celebrating. So here is what I thought might be Miss Marple's most successful screen adaptations so far.
Human nature, Cherry dear. The world of the cinema, the village, it's all quite the same, really.
One-off big screen adaptation of The Mirror Cracked with Angela Lansbury is a rather divisive choice, I get it. Yet the reason I open with this classy outlier is simple. It proves that a Miss Marple story can trade knitted shawl coziness for Hollywood glare and still feel authentically Christie. The cast is ridiculously starry. Elizabeth Taylor as a troubled Hollywood actress, Rock Hudson as her brooding husband. Kim Novak, Tony Curtis, is the kind of ensemble that drinks martinis even during murder investigations.
What a delightful surprise.
Looking lovely as always. Of course, there are fewer lights on than usual. In fact, any fewer, and I'd need a seeing eye dog.
Oh, I shouldn't bother to buy one, dear. In that wig, you could play Lassie.
Lansbury's Marple is cooler, more cynical than most, almost regal. And that works here because the murder isn't just a village spat. It's a crime rooted in deep emotional trauma. The twist is based on real history. I won't spoil it, but if you heard about the real-life tragedy of American actress Jean Tierney, you'll spot the clue. Not cozy, not quick, but sometimes murder isn't meant to be comfortable. Even if the screenplay took liberties, Christie's late career bitterness about celebrity culture still drips from every frame. There is nothing more dangerous than a wounded ego in diamonds.
Well, show business is just a business, Aunt Jane.
What we need is a little more business and a little less show.
Sleeping Murder was the last Miss Marple novel to be published, and it feels like a farewell wrapped in a ghost story. A newlywed couple moves into a seaside house only for the wife to be haunted by memories she cannot place, memories that gradually lead back to a long-buried crime.
But that's impossible.
No, not impossible. Just a remarkable coincidence. And in life, coincidences do happen.
Miss Marple doesn't take center stage here. Instead, she stays gently in the background, letting the young woman do the searching while offering quiet direction and support. That delegation is why I love this film. It understands that Marple's genius is observation, not athleticism. And it's exactly the kind of story that plays to John Hickson's strengths. Quiet authority and a way of listening that feels more powerful than any interrogation.
Aunt Jane's something of a local celebrity.
Oh, dear boy.
She solves puzzles, and not the ones in the Times.
Her Marple never pushes, but you feel her presence in every scene. She brings a kind of steadiness to a story that could easily drift into melodrama, and instead it becomes something rare. A detective story that's also about grief, trust, and the things people bury to survive. A murder is announced and will take place on Friday, October 29th at Little Paddocks at 6:30 p.m. Friends, please accept this, the only intimation.
Archie, there's going to be a murder.
What time?
7 o'clock this evening.
Short notice.
That's right, an ad in the local paper invites everyone to a murder. As simple as that. Who would resist, right? Although obviously everyone treats it like charades until the gun goes off.
Sounds very exciting.
Sounds extremely tedious.
Nonsense, Edmund. I'm going and you're coming with me.
The BBC film trusts the material. No frantic cutting, no nervous music cues, just slow camera moves and the constant rustle of gossip.
I'm not too late, am I? When does the murder begin?
No, you're not too late.
Everybody's still intact.
Oh. It's set barely a decade after the war, and you can feel that collective shiver when old identities no longer match new passports. Hickson plays those undercurrents like chamber music. It's her performance here that the Queen reportedly called just right. She never grandstands, she simply sits through tea and seed cake until someone slips, and then the truth unspools almost politely.
Coffee and gossip, Bunny? Good morning, Miss Marple.
Good morning. Won't you join?
No, thank you very much, but we are rather late.
The result is a mystery that feels less like a puzzle and more like an X-ray of communal denial. Very Christie, very British, and I'd argue, timeless.
Why start all the killing to begin with?
Because she had a guilty secret. It's a case of once upon a time.
By the way, in the same episode, now with Geraldine McEwen as Marple, another crowd favorite, Zoe Wanamaker, stars in the leading role.
Now you saw that, didn't you? Didn't you? Do you think anyone will believe us?
Daring choice, huh? Rutherford is not, I repeat, not Christie's textual Marple. Christie hated the script, met Rutherford and, legend says, surrendered with a hug, conceding that the performance was irresistible.
What a frightful-looking man.
What a frightful-looking dog.
Miss Marple, prudence demands a retreat.
Mr. Stringer, I am convinced that the body is the other side of this war.
It's actually quite amusing to compare this film with the already mentioned 450 from Paddington. Unlike Hickson's version, Rutherford's sleuth and the plot couldn't be farther away from Agatha Christie's creation. This Marple unapologetically refuses to sit quietly in the corner.
You're Miss Emma's nephew, I presume.
Yes, Alexander Eastley. How do you do?
How do you do?
Indeed, in this comical reinvention, the hook is in Rutherford's energy. She's bold, eccentric, and she breaks into houses like it's a hobby. This isn't canon, but it's beloved. Think of it like the Sherlock Holmes of the 1930s with Basil Rathbone. Not strictly accurate, but utterly charming in its own alternative universe way. Having said that, I still believe that Murder, She Said definitely belongs to the top 5 Marples worth watching. Just take it not as a faithful reproduction of the book, but as an affectionate fanfic, which lifts the spirit.
If you don't shut those windows, you'll be fired.
In that case, I shall require 4 weeks' wages in lieu of notice.
Get out of my sight, woman!
With pleasure!
By the way, the film also contains a tiny Easter egg. Here one can spot the notion of the future fan-favorite Marple, Joan Hickson. 23 years before, she inherited the knitting needles. Proof that in Christie land no role is too small. Fate may promote you later.
Long wait for very little.
The younger generation. Well, I don't know.
Arthur, wake up. Arthur.
Dolly?
Mary just said there's a body in the library.
I bet if someone would ask you to name the first Miss Marple book or film that comes to your mind, it will be it. The Body in the Library. Am I right? Well, there certainly is a reason for that. Agatha herself called the novel a variation on a well-worn theme, and that humility is why it works. She's showing us every country house cliché, then rearranging them with the precision of a watchmaker.
Oh, but he was an adorable baby. Well, according to his picture in last Sunday's paper, the Cheviot murderer was an adorable baby.
The book is often referred to as Christie's neatest plot, and the BBC version keeps every moving part in peace. A library so cozy you can smell the beeswax, then leaves a murdered glamour girl on the rug. That irony is Christie. Class comfort punctured by the ugliness it conceals.
Would anyone think that 24 hours ago a perfectly strange young girl was found dead in our library? And now here I am with you, tracking down suspects at a 5-star seaside hotel.
Hickson is at her subtlest here. Watch the sequence where she stands behind a police interview. The eyes flick left, the knitting poses mid-pearl, and you realize she has the pattern already.
I'm sure Jane has worked it out already. Jane, have you an explanation for us?
Well, I have an explanation, but of course it's only my own idea.
The producers once said they aimed to film the books as though the ink was still wet. They succeeded, would you agree? And yes, if you are the one who has never watched a Marple film, start here. I added Lansbury's and Rutherford's episode to the top 5 list, although I know most of you would be merciless. There is only one and only faithful portrayal, and it belongs to the subtle Joan Hickson. Yet there were other remarkable actresses who left their mark on the character in recent decades, say Geraldine McEwen or Julia Mackenzie. Perhaps you like some of their episodes better. Would be thrilled to read about your choices in the comments. Meanwhile, if you want to remind yourself about all the Miss Marple actresses, you may watch detailed, dedicated videos about them on my channel. See you there! Bye!